lyrical name that tune. This is more of a fun thing. Um, I love this song. It's a good thing when you're, have things come in. Let me try to. I might have to read most of the lyrics to the song, right? 8 years old with a flour sack cape tied around his neck. He climbed up on the garage, figuring what the heck. He screwed his courage up so tight the whole thing came unwound. He's got a running start, and bless his heart, he headed for the ground. Anyone got this? Joe, it kind of reminds me what I imagine about your upbringing in in the Dakotas, right? He's one of those.
I know the song, but it's not coming to me.
Yeah, it's funny. He's one of those that knows that life is just a leap of faith. Spread your arms and hold your breath, and always trust your cape.
This guy Clark.
It is,
Mhm.
and it's called the Cape,
You
and the
introduced
whole
me to
song.
that, and I have it on my phone now.
Yeah, it's just a crack up song. It's like it's a folk song, and it's like it's about and then it goes through his life, old and gray with the flower sack cape tied around his neck. He's still jumping off the garage, will be till he's dead. All these years the people said he's acting like a kid. He did not know he could not fly, so he did, right? It's just one of those songs, honestly. It's a delight. It's one of those songs that's just what the heck, right? And you got to trust your cape. Now I bring that up, and it's called The Cape by Guy Clark. I bring that up because um, uh, I think that that's kind of how you have to be as a yoga student. Okay. Like I'm one of those ones, and I really don't recommend what I'm going to say to anyone but me. But here's how, like, I trust my cape, right? I've conscientiously, I don't know, most of you know that I came to I was in right before I started yoga, I was in graduate school for philosophy, and I'm kind of known to be a little bit philosophical. I don't know if you've noticed that about me, but and I've read a whole bunch of really bad writing and very abstract thoughts, and I find them the whole world, we'd be 1,000 years ahead if philosophers just didn't write to the inside of their own head. Like that's all they do. They get so in love with their own thoughts, they write so abstractly no one can follow. And that does no good at all, right? But but the so I didn't read, I conscientiously didn't want to read the Yoga Sutras because I didn't want to get my mind out in front of my experience. So my joke is often in trainings, if you've been in there with me, like I'm gonna read the Yoga Sutras right when I'm near the end and see if I understand it. Like if I agree, like, oh, that's. And I get it's funny to do that as a 35-year practitioner because everyone's read, a lot of people have read it and they throw out lines. And I'm sure I'd be better if I had read it in advance. But what I find I like to do with that is like listen and go, yeah, I think I can understand how that might be true. Not that like, oh, I think that's true, but I'm like trusting my cape as I practice yoga. Doesn't mean I think I'm right. Doesn't mean, but like I try to like go, oh yeah, and try to. I do a lot of imagination when I hear lines about yoga that are beyond my comprehension. I try to imagine how they might be true. How, if you assume that they are true, how it might map onto my own experience of yoga, right? I don't like so like, you've heard all sorts of lines like you've heard me talk about over and over the intersection of the physical body and the subtle bodies at the diaphragm, right? Or you only need two things for a yoga pose, a center of gravity and a sense of direction. These are all lines that I just sit there and trust my cape and try to figure out how they might be true because I actually trust, or how effortful effort becomes effortless, right? There's a phrase, I'm unpacking that with my cape the entire time. And when you think about being a yoga student that way, um, it's not just your own practice as the final arbiter, but you're trying to trust some of the lines that resonate with you before you've practiced, and then you try to go, okay, how might that be true? How might and why might someone say that? Right? And a line is often aspirational to you, like, wow, you only need a center of gravity and a sense of direction. What would that mean as I lean forward on my sitting bones and connect down and feel the weight change on my legs, right? What happens if I lean forward and I'm off my center of gravity? I fall, I lose balance. What happens in my yoga? I mean, like there are all these things to start kind of going, hey, there's something to explore here. So I want to encourage all of you to trust your cape, and don't jump from too high of a garage. I mean, you know, and maybe have a landing pad down below, right? Maybe it's the people on this call it is where you land, but you gotta trust your cape. All right. So, period in that second idea is kind of more about the yoga today is there's a there's a concept in yoga writing about becoming a peer observer, right? Where what that means and how that's translated, again, we're into all the slippery slope of scholarship and all the shit I don't want to pay attention to that much. So I sit there and think about, well, and supposedly at the same time, here's another premise. In asana and in yoga, you're supposed to slow down the oscillation to the mind. There's a line from the Yoga Sutras that I pay attention to and try to trust my cape into. So apparently, if a peer observer of let's say of a yoga pose, let's make it a little more concrete, and somehow the peer observer would emerge only if not only I deal with my ego, that's all the psychological shit that the West gets all connected to, but like what happens in my consciousness when I'm not judging, when I'm and what could be meant by a pure observer. Is it possible? Is there potential in human consciousness to be an observer? Now, if you think of an observer in terms of eyes, your metaphor isn't going to be deep enough. Because as soon as you're looking through your eyes, right, you have a point of view and you have to relate to the subject. You've got a whole bunch of issues, right? So a pure observer isn't necessarily going to use the senses. Maybe. Of course, I'm just trusting my cape. I'm making shit up. I'm giving you the things that I've like gone through. So, as you know, I think a lot of important stuff is happening when you're centering. So, one more thought. So we got this peer observer, and we're going to try to explore it a little bit more. I've taught classes or led classes about this unknowable concept, right? No one's going to be an arbiter of the peer observer, right? You're just not, right? Um, So I was in a book I was listening to, there was this section on what a monumental shift in human consciousness it was to start map making. Okay, and it's like, what? I mean, we take maps for granted, right? It's like, what the hell? They're maps. They tell you where to go. Now we have them on our phone. We don't have to think about anything. This is probably worse, right? But it's like, and the kind of idea was like, think about what a technological advantage a map would be for a tribe, right? Coming into a new territory, looking for new resources, right? Like that, and obviously for war, maps going to be really, really important if you're battling for, resources. So it's like it's a huge technological thing that all of a sudden human beings started to go, wait, I don't have to, I can kind of think about this, but think about what a map does. It goes to a view above the ground, where for ancients, that's where the gods were. Remember, there's a myth about stealing Prometheus stealing the fire, right? Like, so a map is actually taking three-dimensional space, trying to figure out how to represent it on two dimensions. Think about a topographical map where there's elevation, and you're going to a perspective above the three-dimensional space of which you are a part, right? So when you think about it, like think I've always been fascinated with the idea of when human perspective started to show. Remember, like the ancient Egyptians didn't do perspective. All the things were flat. There was a huge breakthrough in human consciousness when they started to represent three dimensions on two dimensions, right? That was a breakthrough. So is the Cartesian numbering system, right? Like that, trying to do this and then with and then having three axis and then adding a fourth axis in time, huge breakthrough, right? But and you don't think about it because we take them for granted. We inherited profound shifts of consciousness. The idea that space and time are the same, a huge shift in consciousness, right? Now we go back to pure observer. What could it mean if I don't get caught in the way I've inherited to think about it, and you're trusting your cape? What would a pure observer be? Sit up straight and tall. And you don't need to carry all that abstraction of what I just said. But no, as we're exploring the idea of consciousness without a particular point of view, taking in more like the shift of a map to a different perspective, not the one we're imbued in, but a different perspective. Feel your feet on the ground. There's certain techniques you're learning all the time. Now, there's going to be a whole limb sitting here of meditation. It's sitting right here because a lot of people thought to become the peer observer, you have to not move. Well, asana is going to be, and breathing is one of the asana, pranayama, right? The yamas and the yamas. And so you've got, and then there's maybe, can you be a peer observer while you're moving? Maybe it's simpler when you're still, like in most meditation. Maybe that's even harder. Maybe it's both. Feet on the floor, sitting bones. Let there be a drop. Let your exhalation show you that there is a constant, not negative, but necessary drop of existential sensation that's being revealed to you on exhale. There's a continual potential of expansion on inhalation. So your breath, we're organized as entities where you've got the drop and the inhalation, and they go back and forth. We're getting the world opened by our experience. So soften the jaw, the inside of the mouth, accentuate the empty part of your sensation. The mind's going to want to fill in the empty part. Future tripping, what you have to get done today, what you didn't do yesterday, how you fucked up yesterday. I have a couple of fuck ups yesterday that I having trouble letting go, right? To cleanse, I'm going to feel shavasana, but I'm going to stay in structure. I'm going to feel my feet, my sitting bones, and I'm going to start to inhabit the emptiness by gently lifting my chest, by bringing more action through my spine. Now, once I lift my chest, can I become part of the whole? Probably less so now if I choose to clench my jaw. That's why I know if you press against your tongue against the roof of your mouth, you're probably going to make a distinction between you and the whatever is happening. So it turns out that So you get all these interesting things in centering, like relax, and even in Shavasana, relax the feel as a gap between the skin on your forehead and the forehead. Relax the temples, relax the jaw, the inside of the mouth. This could be the same instructions as Shavasana, but we're doing it while simultaneously feeling extension up through the spine, feeling the expansion potential on inhalation that was always here. That's what things growing out of the ground in spring do. The dropping potential that's always here. You're living, you're rising and falling in every moment because that's what prana does. Turns out that when I drop and I exhale more from the back ribs, I can actually extend more energy through my spine. Now I'm going to start inhaling and exhaling and feeling the structure of my body, my alive body, and open to the space around me, what's behind me, below me, above me, on any side of me. So now I'm having this ebb and flow life in enveloping emptiness. I've got my hands on the table, but the table's also predominantly empty, even though it's solid. I'm not just breathing for the empty space behind me that my mind can't see. There's empty space in the table everywhere. And I'm alive. And I'm moving. And the empty space is the connective tissue of the universe. It connects everything. How do I let that be true? Because it's already true. When I center now, I feel a hum in my whole body. That's my nervous system being alive. I think there's energy here, there's resilience here in the emptiness. Let go of your day. Prepare your mind to do yoga. I just caught myself tightening the inside of my mouth. What about you? Repose. The emptiness never leaves you. It's always connecting you to everything. Good. And then release and then drop and then reactivate by lifting the sternum up and dropping the chin as if those two are married. They're not just married, they're twins. They look different. The sternum comes up, the chin drops. What if they're the same becoming? They're opening something. What do they open? How do you see that without judging? I don't know, except I can get better at doing it. Raise your head up with closed eyes. Open your eyes. You know how when you're trying to feel interoception, sounds like I know what I'm talking about. I just use a word that more scientific, and so I sound really smart. Interoception, right? Proprioception, how I am in space. I've got an inner ear that keeps me balanced, and sounds like I know what I'm talking about, right? Because I got words for it. You know how often when you're trying to feel innerly, you want to close your eyes, you know, often. But then if you close your eyes, you throw yourself off balance a little bit because part of your balancing mechanism is proprioceptive, right? But given what we just did and tried to like go through, is there any difference really in the universe between having your eyes open and eyes closed? Or is the universe happening? Is it, to quote one of my favorite lyricists, is it the same as it ever was, whether or not your eyes are open or closed? Except my mind has less to deal with if I have less input coming into my visual field. And yet, is there a way to have my eyes open and not have judgment about what's coming into the visual field? Well, aren't you glad you have a midline? Right? You have a way to stabilize in your experience. Find your midline. Don't you? I'm using my hands, but as soon as I do that, I'm using each sitting bone. I'm using each elbow on the ground. I'm using symmetry on the table. I have a midline always, and it changes nothing. It's whether my mind acknowledges that I'm centered. I'm centered in a centerless experience. Don't have your minds try to follow that. Accept the paradox. Breathe. Now, if I become more aware without pressing too hard on the heels of my hand, and I open the skin on the center of my palm, and energy goes up through my fingers, there's an opportunity to lift my chest better, broaden between my shoulder blades, have the energy come up my spine, remembering that my sitting bones hit down. And I'm just unfolding into what already was. And when I do all these things, I don't know about you, but my legs start to hum more. There's another level of perception that I have within my consciousness. It's better when I try not to parse it out into words, right? All right, we got to move around a little bit because, damn, this was a long intro to what might the pure observer be. But so, can't you see why maybe there was a tendency to try to find the thing that's more at the core? Doesn't it make sense that meditation was maybe the beginning of the first limb, right? Because it would be easier to feel the unity when you're not moving, when there's less input, maybe when your eyes are closed, that it's easier to sense the invisible humming. And then you got these kind of, you know, words on a page that tell you if, and this is how I try to say it, if the soundless sound of the universe was calibrated into sound, maybe that sound would be Om. That'd be the sound of the invisible universe happening. And all these people that sat there meditating thought one of the best sounds that reflected this experience was Om. That's weird. How might that be true? Is that the only sound? Probably not. Is there one sound of the universe? There's no sound of the universe, except a whole bunch of yogis are saying, and meditators are saying, I got my legs wide now because I'm trying to, right? But can I hear the silent Om as I'm moving? Can I allow that the sound of the universe doesn't change, even though gravity and muscle contraction and balance are happening in my body? Now, is it just a thought that, for you that nothing's actually changing, even though you're moving? Sure, it can begin as a thought, but your practice makes it an experience. It's already true that nothing changes really in the universe when you move. Prana is flowing in every direction at once, including forward and backwards in time. And you just happen to be moving in this instance, but it's not really changing prana. Not really, right? So I'm going to open my chest, but I'm glad I get to change prana because I get to be more connected to what we called last week when we were exploring sensations of hope. Like there's a lightness that maybe has to do with hope, and it can be experienced through the body. You don't have to be hopeful about something. There's a sensation here, right, that feels lighter that I can experience, right, and get access to, even in my diet. Oh, the shoulder's so not happy, right? Right. But like, even, you know, and I can still feel the lightness, even though my body's being crinky and crackety and all these things. And the simultaneity of this other sensation, this lightness, isn't changed by the fact that my body is cranky. And have any of you gotten to where instead of this just these words just being thoughts, can you kind of feel it? Have you gotten there? Yeah. Fucking right you have. Because you've been trusting your cape. Because you're allowing things to be true. Now, do I talk like this to when I'm out at a sports bar watching, whatever? No, I don't talk about trusting my cape and whatever. I don't talk about this out, you know? There are places this doesn't make sense to talk about, like everywhere. Got to have a sense of humor. I'm going to do dog pose on my table, right? So I'm going to start more actively trying to move my spine in two directions. So I'm going to push down through my sitting bones. I'm going to extend out to the top of my head. I'm going to make sure my sternum is slightly lifted because I know that connects me to the universe, right? But I'm going to do some things as I'm there to even accentuate that sensation, right? So I'm gonna go, okay, now I got all those instructions. So before I start doing all the other stuff, which you could do the other stuff first, but I'm gonna hit my sitting bones, extend out to the top of my head. In fact, I don't like going from sitting bones to the top of the head. That's how I teach it. I like going sitting bones back behind me, lengthening my low back, lifting my chest slightly so I touch more, I feel more connected to the universe, and then go out the top of my head. And then I realized that broadening across my collarbones actually helps. And as soon as I get that, I can tell that I need to balance by pressing down through the index finger, thumb side of my hand on the table. And all of a sudden, all these instructions start informing each other because the instructions were already the same movement of prana. And I'm just becoming part of it. The instructions only reveal what's already happening. So once you get a structure here, and of course, we can improve on how you're having your structure. That's what Iyengar yoga does. But once I get to where I'm about, where I'm kind of maxed out, I'm just going to breathe. I'm going to mark my territory. There's no territory and then come back out of it. There's no territory that's being hidden from you, by the way. So, what if everything at once is waiting for you to actually trust your cape? Like everything. And this isn't a thought, this is actually true in the universe, right? It's not a thought, it's actually already true. How is it true? Explore. I'm leaning forward onto my, putting my, trying to feel my connection to the earth by grounding my forearms on my femur bones, right? And I'm gonna like not just do this lazily. I'm gonna start bringing yoga, asana, clarity to the movement. So what did I do? Here's my shoulders up towards my ears, right? As I start to drop my shoulders, lift my sternum, a natural continuation for that would be opening my palms, right? And I'm gonna go like this, and notice when you drop, your hands kind of lose some of their intensity, right? So now I'm gonna follow it. I'm gonna try to follow the happening in asana. And my guide is when I feel the hum being more connected through me. The hum starts to adjust my poses. Now I'm using my palms, and already I can tell I'm overusing them because I'm blocking myself from the hum. So I got to find a better balance. When I realized I was overdoing my hands and underdoing my forearms on my femur bones. So now wait, once I get that, wait, I better lift my chest a little bit more, broaden between my shoulder blades. Oh wait, I could broaden across my sacrum. Oh wait, that opens the opportunity to extend from my inner groin to my inner knee down to my inner heel. And suddenly I'm everywhere. My mind can't keep up. So I'm going to keep the structure of my body, and I'm going to stop thinking about the instructions. And I'm just going to absorb the universe in this position. The universe does not restrict this position. Good, and then release. So now I did that with palms open, right? So we did it like this, right? So now I'm going to take my palms open, and I'm going to put them right in front of my face. Ground my elbows. If you don't have a table, you can just ground them on your thighs, right? And I'm going to try to see if the space between my hands and the space on the outside of my hands and my elbows being grounded on the table. We're not folding them yet, though, right? We're keeping them open. Can I use that to feel the space between my ears and my shoulders? Can I use awareness of the space on both sides of my hand to feel the space behind me? When I do that, do I naturally ground my sitting bones and feel my feet on the foot pedals on the floor? Is anyone having all this happen to you at once yet? You're becoming part of the happening. The instructions were always problematic. They're to keep your mind company. Make your mind think you're doing stuff. And then release. And then you get, so I got fatigued. Does anyone notice when you're doing it, did you fatigue more on one side than the other? Like I had one bicep and tricep fatigue too fast. It's because I wasn't actually symmetrical. So that'd be something for me to work on. So I could, this side is like, so I come back in it the second time and I go like, okay, I already know I'm going to overwork on one side. So what does it mean to trust my cape, pull back from wanting to like get the pose let the ambiguity of emptiness come in, but trust my ability to hear and watch fatigue on one side as information. Breathe. Good. Now, now fold your hands. Right away for me, that helps the over fatigue on one side, right? Because I got another grounding point. This did one thing that it opened me, right? Kind of a retention inhalation. By the way, retention can be an inhalation too. There's a retentive side of inhalation side of retention, and a exhalation side of retention. But don't worry about that. So now I'm doing this, and I'm trying to figure out how this triangle can help me learn about equal work between my shoulders. And once I start getting my elbows connected more and the hands connected symmetrically, does anyone naturally want to better lift their sternum? Can you feel that happening? And then your inhale comes in and the pose writes itself. Good. And then release. So in headstand, instead of just doing this, like you're doing the steeple when you're a little kid, remember the kids in the church? Anyone do that when you're do all that stuff? That's not right. So I just saw myself as a kid, right? Here's the steeple of the church. Got all my times here. I want my wonder as part of putting my hands together. I'm going to put my hands together like this, right? And if you can't do that like Joe, then put your heel of your hands together and start exploring the way bone connection between the heel of your hands opens different sensation in your whole body. Okay, so I'm doing this. Now push too hard between the web of your fingers. Push too hard on the heel of your hands. Someone like Joe that can't use their hands the same way, right? No, can you feel how that shuts you off from the universe if you push too hard in there? Can you kind of feel that effort? Yes, no, can you tell too much effort cuts you from the universe? So then how you put it in here matters. So if you do it, and it doesn't mean you do it just lighter, you do it better. You do it lighter because once you start feeling the lightness of it, then and so, but I'm gonna like lay my fingers down in a way where I want to like have my fingers continue across to the opposite wrist. And as I do that, the pressure on the elbows deepens a little bit, right? And my chest wants to lift. There's a whole bunch of things to be congruent, right? So you did it on your elbows this way. Now we're all going to do it on our lap. Now it doesn't matter. The webbing of the fingers is just like window dressing, right? But so now I'm doing it here. And I'm thinking that if you want to never really enjoy headstand, if you're a traditional student, you'd never learn how to use your hands and wrists. If you don't learn how to use your hands and wrists, the pose is always going to be super heavy, right? All right. So now and now I say that to you about a traditional student to let you know the whole pose can happen in your hands in headstand with your hands and wrists. The whole pose, the prana opens at every point, right? So now I'm doing this and I'm putting down my, like I have it on the floor, like this would be the floor. And I'm trying to get the hands right. And I'm using the hum when the hum increases of how I'm like putting my hands together and reaching across. And I've done this to you with you before. I want you to let this part of your wrist go down, And I want you to lift your forearm up towards your shoulder. I want you the this part of your wrist to go down, this part of your forearm to go up. But I want you to do that. As you try to do that, does anyone notice this? As you try to go bring this part of your wrist this way and the forearm back this way, does anyone feel at first that you want to increase the pressure between the webs of your fingers? Guess what? You have to resist that. That's like clenching your jaw. That's like pressing your tongue too hard against the roof of your mouth. That's you blocking the universe because you want control and you want success. You're not being the pure observer. You're actually wanting it to go a certain way. Let's try it again. So now I'm doing this and I'm dropping my wrist and I'm lifting my forearm up and I just fucked up on my hands. Got to repose. And as I press the webs of my fingers together some, or put the heel of my hands together if you can't do the fingers, when I do it with more integrity, let's call that, does anyone feel more of their body? Do it too hard, press too hard and watch it close down. Release, repose, start over. You're just following in asana. So I'm going through the whole thing. See there, I got it sweeter this time. Makes me smile. I can feel the whole pose starting to happen. Wrist down, forearms up, makes me want to lift my chest. My head comes up a little bit. My neck extends. My shoulder blades descend. All these things happen in headstand. It just turns out to be your hands are in different positions, but the same happening happens, right? Now, to help you feel that, release your hands. To help you feel that, I want you to lightly touch the top of your head, right? Like, oh, yeah, that's the top of my head. That would be on the ground. You know what's a great way to really screw up if you're able to do traditional headstand, which I've never done? Too much contact, Stephanie, on the top of your head. Do it like so the fingers, so you're not doing the fingers. So when you're trying to reveal prana, if you have too much input, your mind will have to judge it. So I'm just kind of using this part of my hand, kind of on the crown of my head. And then I'm wanting to figure out how to feel that extend into it while lengthening my energy of my spine the opposite direction. Right? So I'm pushing into my hand and moving away from my hand at the same time. You know how to really screw up headstand if you're doing a traditional pose? Push really hard on the top of your head and push your head into the wall. A mat into your hand, right? That's how a lot of beginners do it. They take way too much weight on their head. Everything sucks because they totally fell out of the flow of prana. Now I just compressed my neck. I just did that way too hard. So I'm removing my neck a little bit because now I want to do it better because I want my pose not to be like doing a mistake. So I have to like clear the lens, clear the water, right? And then do it again and get it better again and figure out what it is to have the pressure on my head, lengthen my neck away from it. And as I do that, I don't know about you. Does anyone feel more hum in the rest of their body, including their legs? I totally do. That happens when you're upside down, right? Good. And then release. So here we go back again. Headstand. All this stuff. Trying to tell you that it always can be, the whole pose can be accessed chronically with how you do all this action, right? What's hard about this idea of the wrist coming forward and the forearm coming back is it muscularizes the pose a little bit, right? So you got to be careful not to overdo it. But remember, we're putting the hands together like it matters. We've got the forearms. I'm going to go down onto my thighs now, like that's the floor, right? Now I got to remind myself of the feeling of the top of my head because I'm going to want that chronically in a little bit, right? So I'm going to like put my hands together, right? I'm going to make sure the web of my hands of my fingers are going smart. I'm dropping the wrist. I'm pulling up. I'm going up here. When I do that, my chest wants to lift some. I want to lengthen my neck. Now I want to feel the top of my head pressure. I want to move away from it. As I move away from it and into it, the pressure on the top of my head. Does anyone feel a change on their sitting bones? Then let it go down to your legs. When my spine becomes moving in two directions, prana reveals in the whole body. It's a good time to breathe. Good, and then release. One more question as we sit here and ponder experiences that we're not having, knowing that prana is the same regardless of my body position. So I'm sitting here tapping on my own head, trying to get all my judgments out of my head, right? Why would it be a benefit to be upside down when doing all this? Bethany, why is it an advantage to be upside down? Asking the traditional headstand practitioner. She's been doing it every day for a while, years now.
Uh,
Why? Why? Tell me why. Why?
oh gosh, that's such on the spot. There's a certain, eventually there becomes a certain quietness that comes when you're upside down. But there's also a lot of like exploration in the the down to go up
Let me
part.
try to put some other words that can translate it,
Thank
right?
you.
Yeah, it's really hard. I just put her really on the spot, right? Um, there's something, although it's really deep and grounded, there's also something playful about it because you're upside down, because the world's upside down. And one of the images I had this morning about being a pure observer and what it takes without judgment, anyone like ever on a video seen like a baby fawn try to walk or a horse come out and be born and stand up for the first time and it's wobbling and right? That's when you're first doing headstand, right? You're sitting there, but there's that there's an innocence when you're upside down. You're in a different world, right? It is very centered, all those things. But so we're going to try to invert the room now in what we just did. And I don't invert it with your frontal cortex. Don't try to make it be your imagination. Do anyone remember maybe hanging your head off the edge of your bed? Do you remember like when you were a kid, the shit like that you did to feel new sensations? Conjure that. Okay, here we go. We're trusting our cape and the fact that emptiness and connection to emptiness and the lightness of prana writes the asana. And now we're trying to get access to being upside down for God's sakes while I'm sitting right side up and I'm trying to not have it be an act of my imagination. I'm trying to let it be true. So here I connect my hands, I connect my forearms, right? I do all the things. I feel the pressure on the top of my head. right? My wrists go down, my forearms go up, my chest lifts, the energy goes down through my sitting bones. Now I try to let it all be new. Being upside down is not how we realize stuff. So I'm going to let it be new. I'm going to keep going through what I know, all the instructions. Gonna breathe. And then release. Remember, Ronald doesn't give a shit if you're upside down or not. Changing the position and having the same unity of sensation, the change of position is just to show your mind how miraculous everything is. It's like, how could it be the same if I'm right side up or upside down? Now, it turned out when I do it, I tend to get even more connection when I lightly let my thumbs touch. I don't know. Just trust in my cape. It's probably wrong somehow. Gonna do it one more time. Somehow the connection between my thumbs helped me feel my head on the floor. I don't, makes no freaking sense to me. Gonna get the web in my hands, gonna do the whole pose, do the whole class. Trying to let the lightness and the connection to my surroundings guide the instructions that I know. Feel the top of my head. Feel the surprise of being upside down. As I feel my whole body, I see the focus that Bethany's talking about. To feel all this at once, I have to be a single point with all the happening of my body. Keep adjusting your own pose in the ways that make you feel more connected to the home. Use your breath to mark the territory. It was always yours. Good, and then release. So hopefully on this last one, you, I at least, I have to come back because that one put me into that other place, right? Trying to make my way back, right? Where, um, where did anyone get a sense when you started to feel the whole pose and then stop trying of the of it of it turns out that I remember a very advanced yoga practitioner said to the class I was in that headstand is more meditative, shoulder stand is more nourishing. So that's what Bethany, you can tell when she said it helps it kind of focus. She's on the realizing the meditative quality of headstand, right? And it's there. Did anyone get that with all the complication and all the instruction and you let it go? Did you start to get, see, I'm back there again. See, I'm doing right now. I'm actually going back through the whole pose not doing the instructions. I'm letting the experience. I'm calming my frontal cortex down so I don't judge. And I'm letting what I just did pervade my body. Do it. Let it pervade your whole body right now, what you just did. By making my frontal cortex an object with the touch, I let it be subject to what just happened. You know, it may have been during all those instructions you got frustrated or you felt goofy. Drop all that shit and trust your cape. We're also obviously preparing for Shavasana. What I don't want, and then come on back, what I don't want you to come out, whether however successful or unsuccessful this class was for you, I don't want you to come back thinking, not believing that whatever you were doing was on the path to realizing headstand. Don't undercut yourself by saying it was just imagination. The more you practice, the more you'll start feeling it. That's the promise of yoga, right? You'll actually start to realize that there's a simultaneous lightness to everything. This is one of the impediments, the judging frontal cortex, the idea that the emptiness and the quiet can adjust your pose, that you're following something, you're not creating something, which is very counter how human beings perceive themselves. Right? We think we're creating stuff all the time. In asana, you're just becoming something. And it was always waiting for you. Right? And it's always ultimately the same, whether you're upside down or not. What it takes for you to allow that truth, that's going to be what your practice is for. Some days are better than others for me. I don't know about you. All right, prepare for Shavasana. I always have trouble with the idea, oh, just love yourself, right? I like the idea of trust in my cape. That seems easier. Find the place, the quietude that allows you to receive the support of your chair. Adjust how you need to do. I need to feel my knees a little closer together so I can feel the connection. But whatever you need to do to get to that. And then when you get there, release. Lips together, teeth slightly apart. Relax around the temples, the jaw, the inside of the mouth. The emptiness hums. The hum is nourishing. The hum quiets the mind. The mind receives the hum. Feel your breath. Don't change it. Thank your body. Thank it again. Gratitude is a lightening sensation. Gratitude relieves burden. Don't wait to be grateful for something. Just be grateful. Slightly deeper inhalation, slightly longer exhalation. When you're ready, open your eyes.